Reaching over again. Sorry, people.
Oh, it's okay. Nothing's live yet.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Well, we're live here, and the rest are coming up. It's like this every time.
I know. It's
like,
you just never know.
never know.
Perfect.
And
YouTube, TurningLeaf, Instagram, what's up? Kate's feed and Dean's feed.
There we
We're
are.
all here.
We're here.
One big happy family. Just here.
We are live, and welcome to Monday Night Live.
Yes, the best night of the week.
Best night of the week, as Kate would say. I am Dean Nix. This is Love Kate Simmons.
Hello, everyone.
Here at TurningLeaf Health and Wellness in beautiful St. George, Utah. We are excited to be with you tonight and be able to, as always, bring to you our life coaching topics. And we work to create content that is applicable and timely and important for us to understand and helpful, more than anything helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, if on Dean's page or my page last week, you were like, what the heck? Where's Monday Night Live? Apparently Facebook did another changing of the stuff on us, and we went live to only us.
Yeah,
on our feeds.
Only to me. So we're going to rectify that.
So we've made sure we were public today, so everyone's already starting to pop in, which is awesome.
That's good. Well, we're excited to talk tonight. One of the topics that the topic we're going to be talking tonight is one that is very much coming up recently. And I think a lot of it has to do with what's going on with the end of the year, what's going on with the year,
yes,
but also what's going on with the holidays. And it just felt very important that we address it tonight.
Yes, I love that you just, oh my goodness. I love that you brought up this topic today, because I do think that it is something that tends to creep in this time of year every year.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to talk about shame and the purpose and the role of shame in our lives, and how it affects us in moving ourselves forward. And this is an important piece, because a lot of times we believe that shame is a motivator, because it is, but it's not a healthy motivator.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think for me too, and really, Dina, anytime if I go kind of like left when you're going to go right, you just tell me and it's chill. Like everywhere we're good, right, everybody?
Yep.
But for me, like judgment and shame are so completely webbed and like have this crazy codependent, nasty relationship. So judgment can also be very, very healthy. But when we come, oh, I'm getting too close to that car. That's like distance judgment, right? Or like, oh, I'm developing this unhealthy pattern with this person, like be able to kind of have that recollection, right? Like the ability to see stuff. But when we couple it with shame and we just start to like attack us and just really annihilate who we are and what we believe that we are, then it can get really just nasty out there. It's like war. It's like guerrilla warfare. Right?
It is. It is emotional warfare. Emotional warfare. And yes, and judgment is a big piece of this. And I would agree. I would agree that judgment is something that is necessary in our lives when in regards to objects.
Yes.
When we're using judgment to determine how far we're following the car ahead of us, or if we're going to make the basket within the trash and we yell out Kobe and we miss,
right?
You know, these types of things. And so
we eat too much sugar.
And with objects, we can use judgment, but discernment is different. Discernment is what we use on ourselves and on human beings. We have to use that discerning voice. And the discerning voice is when that heart, how we feel, and that head, what we know to be true, come together in equal balance to guide us. And so, yes, judgment is very much a way for us to shame. When we use judgment as human beings, when we use judgment on ourselves, what we're doing is we are comparing or contrasting ourselves to other human beings. And this is where the shame comes in.
Right.
That you're talking about is we start comparing or contrasting ourselves to other human beings and even to ourselves to a point. When we start using shame and judgment to make decisions, we suffer.
Yes.
We suffer. And the thing that's interesting about shame is how we really create this belief system that shame somehow is beneficial. So something happens, let's say we forget, and I always love using this example, is we forget somebody's birthday, and it's a family member or somebody close to us or a friend, and we forget their birthday. And now we spend the rest of the week, the day, the year, and we just shame ourselves. And I love how Brene Brown being an amazing writer. I'm hoping that those of you that are watching, if you haven't tuned into who Brene Brown is, I hope you do. Brene Brown identifies as there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I've done something inappropriate or wrong or bad. Shame is I am inappropriate, I'm wrong, I'm bad. And I really love how she defines that and how she identifies that, because in shaming ourselves, when we participate in something that's unhealthy for us, whatever it is, or when we make a mistake, we need to determine this healthy guilt swooping in, this healthy guilt coming in. We've talked about that in other webisodes and podcasts, and the difference between healthy guilt and unhealthy guilt. So go back and look at our other YouTube videos on guilt. But shame itself comes when we don't attend the unhealthy guilt. And we start to couple unhealthy guilt and shame together. And that's where the judgment comes in, because in order to determine that we're bad or we're wrong or we're not good enough, then we start to look outside of ourselves and we start to compare ourselves or judge ourselves based upon other people. Oh, they would never forget this, or oh, they would never do that. And the problem with this thinking is that it doesn't allow, number one, for growth. And number two, it doesn't allow for humanity.
Right. Absolutely. And I think particularly, like we led with, this comes in at this time of year because we're really, like, I think as humans, and we talk about this all the time in lives as well and on the podcast, like we're so plugged in externally that it's really easy this time of year as people are posting their holiday parties and like all the things that they've been able to accomplish over the years. We get closer to New Year as well, and resolutions and all that kind of jazz, that it gets really easy to start to see where we aren't matching up, or where we're not coming in ahead of the pack, or where we completely dropped the ball this year. Like, I know a lot of people are like struggling. They struggle sometimes with that Christmas card idea, right? Like, got to put my life in on a Christmas card, and the fact that sometimes we just don't even have the capacity to do a Christmas card this time of year. And so then there's all those things. Obviously, these are kind of small little examples, but they can feel really big in your life if you're having a really difficult time navigating that. So,
and if we couple that with everyday life, and here we are in the holidays dealing with what you're talking about, but we're also dealing with everyday life of social media.
Yes.
And the media, social media shaming that comes out, and where we can look at other people's feeds and shame ourselves for it, as you're saying, the Christmas card effect, but also those that shame through social media as well, because you're on the other side of the glass window, you put your little passive aggressive comment in there, or they make their passive aggressive comment towards you, and we internalize that, and we allow that shame to kind of sit and germinate inside of us. And really, that is such a devastating thing. I also see shame show up when people compare themselves, and even to themselves.
Yes.
That's a fun one. When I listen to people, they'll talk about, oh, I found a picture of me 20 years ago, and I looked so ... Right. And then I've let myself go, or I've done this, or I've done that, and then the shame swoops in. And here's the thing that's interesting about shame. Shame is as effective as spitting in a wound and thinking it's an antiseptic.
Gross.
Right?
A good analogy.
But it's so funny how we just think we have this belief that once a wound is opened, by spitting in it, somehow it's equivalent to an antiseptic.
Right. That will heal it.
And I get it. Like mom's spit, we all know. It's an antiseptic, it's a hair gel, it's a whole deal. And so I know we can grow up with that belief that, maybe this is an effective tool. But the reality is that shame itself has no effect. And I would challenge anybody out there listening to me today, or listening to us today, I would challenge you to ask yourself, have you ever made a solid, powerful decision out of shame that lasted? It was long lasting and healthy.
Right.
because the odds are slim to none.
Right.
And if it did happen, it's a rare occurrence that you were able to flip that into something positive.
Right.
And so it's important for us to really step back from shame and ask ourselves, am I making decisions from this shame-based place, this fear-based place? Mm-hmm. Or am I making decisions based upon what I want to create? And shaming yourself is easy behavior that we fall into.
Yeah.
It's easily modeled behavior for parents, those of you parents out there, for our children to pick up. Mm-hmm. And parents will be, oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I'm so fat, or I'm so lazy today, and we don't think that those are big things, but those little comments are really seeds that we're sowing for our children to start to think that's how you motivate yourself in a shame-based way.
Right, absolutely. The other interesting piece about shame is it's so, it becomes such a really deep, hard thing. Like we talk about like this open wound, right? Like I was just thinking a couple of weeks ago, had an incredible person in my office who wanted to like really start to get to work on themselves, but they were really unwilling to kind of share some of the pieces that they were so ashamed of, which is cool. Like I'm not there to try to pry anybody open, and we go where people are comfortable to go and refer them out when we need to.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, but he was really having a really difficult time. And so I asked him to think about the thing that he was really having a difficult time accepting about himself or whatever behavior he had done without sharing it with me, and then flipping it for if I were to share that was an experience that I had done or a choice that I had made, if he would look at me with the same shame lens that he was looking at himself. And I think that's a pretty good tool sometimes for us to like take a look at something where we think, oh, if someone were to share this about themselves to me, most likely I would react with a lot of compassion, a lot of love, try to get them the support and the resources and the places to be able to get them the help that they need in order to be able to heal and to find the lesson in it, right?
Right.
Which is what guilt does. It helps us be able, like that healthy guilt. That healthy guilt allows us to be able to like see all of those things, right? Because it's the thing that happened and not who I am, right, and not something I'm defined by.
Right.
So being able to like see that maybe I need to get some assistance in it, or look at the life lesson. Okay, I did that. That's something that happened. What did I gain from it? What did I learn? How can I choose differently next time, right? And then we can move forward with it.
Absolutely.
Whereas shame just continues to spiral us and keep us stuck.
And it keeps the circle in the drain.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about it as well is as we use shame on ourselves, we tend to use shame on other people.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so, you know, as I talk to people and they'll talk about social media shaming, for example, and it's so funny to me how individuals will shame other people for things that are going on in their lives that they're struggling with or they're feeling uncomfortable with, mm-hmm, even though they're not capable or willing to talk about it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So they themselves are struggling with these issues, but they're having a hard time. So they turn outwardly and start shaming other people about it. And it's such an interesting thing to experience and to see.
100%. Ryan, thanks. Ryan says, I love the message, you guys. So that's awesome. Oh, I'm going to run out of power on my thing. You know, I'll think about some of the pieces of my own experience in life where I've felt the most shame, right? And like that burden that we carry so close and so heavy within us, until it's almost like, for me, it was like I knew I needed to get help healing it because I wasn't getting anywhere really on my own, and yet I didn't really have skills what to do or how to do that. And finally, it was like 4 years after having an experience that I finally was able to get brave enough to seek help and to seek wisdom from outside sources, professionals, and all that kind of stuff to help kind of heal through this big shameful event that I had had, right? And I remember just like breaking down and weeping and like just exposing the most raw, hard pieces of my soul I was so ashamed about. And having the person that I think would come back at me with like, damn, Kate, you should be in a loony bin or in jail or something, right? Like that's what we think. We think we're that terrible that we should have the death sentence, right?
Right.
When really that just the opposite happened, where I was met with so much love and so much compassion and so much like a different perspective on things, and then like skills that could come in. And this was years ago before I had the opportunity to meet you and go through a seminar process, which is another place that a lot of that stuff just gets to kind of have light actually shown on it, because shame is so dark. Like there's so much darkness that it's hard to really see what things really are without actual light coming in. And so whenever I get to those places, I just think about that experience. Like when you have an experience where you're able to unravel the shame and turn it into healthy guilt and move forward with a lesson and changed behavior, a new perspective and new light in your life, then it's empowering and it gives you a place to look at as reference for the next time that you screw up. Because guess what? You're human. It's gonna happen over and over and over again. Welcome to the party.
Very true. Very true. And going along those lines, that's the other part we have to recognize, as you brought it up, is usually when we make decisions from shame, we make desperate decisions.
Yes.
And you kind of put it, in perspective when you were talking about people, you were expecting people to go to these extremes, like you should be locked up or all these things. And really, when we're seeing what's happening going on in our world with suicide, for example, right now, and we see a rise in suicide, especially since social media has been prevalent. So over the last 10 years, the increase in suicide, the divides in social dynamics have risen. We're seeing all these dynamics that are coming from it because there's so much shame.
Right. And I think especially in populations like the young, right? Like teen suicide and stuff like that, where they're not making those choices because they've gone through like a huge loss of money or something that sometimes adults can really struggle with, right? But it all comes from that shame place.
The shaming,
to cut you off.
The shaming about themselves or about their bodies or about their lives. And you're right. Like for a teenager, being shamed over something that they wore or something that they said can be life changing. And so we struggle with this because we go to that shame-based place and then we try to make decisions, and they're very desperate decisions. So before we run out of time, there's two things that we need to overcome shame. One is perspective, and number two is compassion. Perspective is important. We need to step back from what's in front of us, and we need to apply the big picture. You used that example in working with one of your people when you said you flipped it.
Right.
So if I shared the same thing with you, would you look at me the same way? And the answer is no. So a change of perspective is really super critical in helping us move past shame. We've got to step back and look at big picture. And we've got to recognize that the things that feel huge to us because of the shame, a year from now, is it going to matter? 5 years from now, is it going to matter? 20 years from now, is it going to matter? Things of that nature. And if you're having a hard time reframing it or changing perspective, get help.
Yes.
Come in, let us help you. There's other providers out there. There's great clinicians in town and out in your community. There's a lot of resources. So changing perspective. Second is compassion. Really looking at yourself through the compassion lens. And compassion is all about acceptance, empathy, and love. And recognizing that we have to embrace our humanity. We have to recognize we're humans. We have to recognize that we're doing the best that we can do with what's in front of us at the moment, knowing that 5 minutes from now, the moment will be different and that we can make a new decision. But we have to start to use that compassion and love and patience. And if we can apply compassion and we can apply a change of perspective, then we can overcome this shame. The third piece, I'm going to throw a third in there because we've got 30 seconds.
I love it.
Is we really got to break the pattern and habit of shame. Whenever you're in the shame cycle, ask yourself, is this going to change anything? Is this me thinking that spit and antiseptic are the same thing? Really start to break the cycle down and move away from that barrier.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Is there a solution in here, or am I just torturing myself?
Amen.
And then using the perspective and compassion to find that new solution and to make that change that you're looking for. I love it. That's perfect, Dean.
So hi to Amber, hi to Victoria, all the others that have chimed in. Some of the feeds we can't see, unfortunately, due to our cameras. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for supporting, liking, and sharing our videos. Last week, like we said, last week's videos didn't show up because of the change on the apps. We're going to go and make those public, so you can go back and look at last week's as well.
Yes.
So thank you all. Thank you so much.
Also, I finally got another podcast published. And it's so, every time I re-listen and edit one, I always tell Dean, I'm like, dang, I'm actually shocked. Like, I don't know why I'm so shocked that we do a great job. We do a good job. So go listen to it. It's all about being proactive versus crisis response, and how to be not only your own advocate, but an advocate for good out in the world. So look for that podcast on Spreaker, on all the podcast stations that you love to listen to, or you can find it here on Facebook or our Instagram as well. Shameless plug for the podcast with Dean and Kate.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great week. We'll see you.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Get it?
I think so.